All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Welcome to Conversations with Marianne. I'm Marianne Okon, and I'm a broadcast journalist in Nigeria. Of course, we are broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria, the economic capital. Today, we're going to be talking about Nigeria because, most of our conversations are tailored around Nigeria, although we delve into other countries around Africa. But today, we're talking about Nigeria. Now, Nigeria has been in the news for so many wrong reasons lately. I mean, there are a few good things that are happening in Nigeria, but they do not make headlines as much as the negatives that have been taking place, from COVID to NSAS to police brutality to the killings of people in Kaduna State. I mean, it's been a very interesting year, and there's been a lot happening. But today we're just going to talk about the generality of Nigeria's problems, because it looks like we have our plate really full, and we don't even know where to start from. Plus, of course, we're going to look at, the leadership style of our president and how he's responded to all the hues and cries of Nigerians. And there's a thing in Nigeria where people refer to Mr. President's body language as, whether he would do well or he would not do well. And for those who do not know, President Muhammadu Buhari has been the only president in Nigeria's history who has continuously run for this office of the president over and over so many times until he finally won. There's so many people who have wanted to be president, but not as much as he did. He really wanted to be president. And so the expectations that were, coming from Nigerians for him were so high. But unfortunately, a lot of Nigerians are divided on this issue as to if he's done well or if he's not done well. We're not necessarily doing an assessment of Mr. President's, job as a president, but it will be part of our conversation. Today, we're looking at the level of insecurity and the economy and how Nigerians are reacting to it. My guest today is joining us from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. He's a broadcast journalist with Nigeria's #1 talk radio station, Nigeria Info, Femi Amele. Femi, thank you so much for joining us. It's really always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm trying to make sure that the remaining part of my face shows so I can be maybe as beautiful as you are, as always. I can't put your makeup.
Thank you so much. I'm flattered. Anyway, Femi, I think the biggest question that everybody would ask, and of course, for those who are looking at the screen, and our title for the conversation today is Nigeria working for you? And I'm sure that when I posted this, lots of people responded on Facebook, on Twitter, and 80% of those responses were negative, and they gave reasons. But you and I are going to banter mostly on some of the things that have made headlines lately. Let's talk about the general situation in Nigeria. I wrote a couple of things down, so let me just take a look at it. I mean, let's start with the economic situation. Universities are on strike, lecturers are on strike, and they have dared the government over and over and said, we're not coming back until we can get a favorable response, and not just responses, but we also want to get some action put in place, because we've been here so many times. I don't know about you, Femi, but I lost a whole school year in my university days because there was a strike action that lasted for so long. I don't know about you. So this is also a situation where students have had to lose a whole, school year because lecturers have refused to return to classrooms. Thanks to COVID, there have been job cuts. We've had people lose their jobs. Recently, someone who works in a media house allegedly committed suicide because he lost his job. Onion is the new gold in Nigeria, by the way. If you can afford onion, then you are somewhat a second class or first class citizen in Nigeria. And that's also an issue of food security. I just want to lay out all of this. So with all of these things, Nigerians are also looking for ways to leave the country. So we're seeing a form of economic migration happening in the space of a few months, right after the NSAS campaign and the protest. And things seem to be getting worse. So for you, who has to be on radio every day and report these issues and feel the pulse of people, because there's a feedback mechanism almost immediately compared to me, who's on TV, walk us through what our present situation is.
Well, one of the things I think there is to point at, just like you said, our economic life, there's so much to look into and try to understand, how things are. Unfortunately, a lot of things are meshed into each other. I can start with the story of the onion. On a good day, you know, we pride ourselves that we have a lot of agriculture. Remember, we're driving our economy towards non-oil supply, which essentially is agriculture. And one of the good food that everybody feels a spice that would make it out of Nigeria, that would make a lot of difference, would be onion. But it's sad because even for farmers who go to farms to do all they have been doing, the trouble now is that they have insecurity going on in the northern part of the country. The story of the rice farmers, continues to echo on. 43 farmers assassinated. Some say, I mean, we've seen the rhetorics around that. What were they doing on the farm? Those areas were not supposed to be gone to by farmers, but the farmers have to eat. They have to find a way to supply what they have. And that's on one part. And then you start to have conversations with some Nigerians that I listen to daily. No matter the conversation you bring up, it all comes down to decision making. The quality of the decision making, is it informed by politics? Is it informed by concern for the people? Is those decisions based against some level of matriculation that one would say, oh yes, this is the idea that this is based on. If you do this way to bring out this way, this is the model. However, when it comes to economics, it looks like we're winging it. When we say we're winging it is when you say you're going to give 20,000 naira to about 25,000 naira, and you translate that to mean that you're going to be able to get up to 100 million Nigerians out of poverty soon enough. At a time, for example, where the World Bank is also saying about 100 million Nigerians are actually will go into the poverty line. So it looks like, oh yes, we have this going in one way, but whatever is being analyzed, whatever is being used to form the baseline of our economic decision is there's a lot of fault lines in there, or there's a lot of lack of sincerity in the use of data available, in analyzing the data available, and in being truthful in using that data based on what there is. You have a situation in northern Nigeria. It's the landscape, the economic life there is different. You have in south, down, south, the economic life there is different. And when you have a country with so much diverse economic challenges by region, one thing you're already sure of is one solution does not fit all. It will not fit all. And I think the more we fail to recognize that, and the more we remain resolved that one mechanism should fit all, the more trouble we'll get into.
Interesting. Let's go back to the economic part, because there's been a lot of borrowing under the Buhari administration, a lot of it, so much so that the SERAP has had to, warn, push, ask nicely, even gone to court to stop some of the. In fact, the latest that SERAP has initiated, the latest suit is that that government not be able to touch pensions monies, because they're saying, well, the pension money is there, they're not using it for anything. Why don't we use it and then we can put it back? But then there's a trust issue where, we work with precedents in this country. If there's been a precedent where governments have touched monies that were meant for something else and they've not returned it, it gives us cause for concern. And hence the reason why SERAP is saying, we're going to take a lawsuit again, as SERAP has 1 million lawsuits against the government, by the way. And there's, they're doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. They're doing an amazing job because, they seem to be more of the opposition or the people who are questioning the government, and a lot more than the guys who call themselves the opposition. But the question is that SERAP seems to saying they want to use claims to use from pensions fund, rather than can they put it to use. Now, I want to take your attention to something that the World Bank just recently warned. They were talking about the fact that the government needs to try as much as possible to avoid some of the things that they're doing now, so that we do not slide into a worse form of recession. I think I have that somewhere here. So my question is, how can we make our government, I know it's a tough call, but how do we make our government do what they say they will do with these monies? They've done a couple of things. They will say, oh, they've done the railway, they've fixed some roads, but is that really what borrowed monies should be put into?
What borrowed money should be put into is interesting at this time. It's about prioritizing. If you're building infrastructure for people that will get a chance to use it, because for some Nigerians, it's a struggle. I'm on radio most days of the week, and one of the challenges I have is people will call you in the middle of a major conversation to say, I understand all you're saying, all the English you're saying. I'm a graduate. I have a job. Now I don't have food. My children have not eaten since last night. And you start to wonder, how do you respond to that in the middle of a live program that is on, where everybody around you can easily hear how bad the poverty level is. Now, the report you were referring to, the Nigerian, what you call now, Nigerian update, yes, World Bank update, yes, on reforms. One of the things they mentioned about that reforms, Nigerian Development Update, yes, they have a report that did come out in June, and yesterday they had the meeting with the World Bank. And the World Bank in Nigeria, I remember one of the things the country director said, he said Nigeria is at a historic, mark this 3 words, historic critical junction. Those were his words, historic critical junction. I used that phrase earlier today when I was discussing the position of the World Bank. And what crossed my mind is, when you're at a junction, you either get it right or left. This is not the use of Google Map. Google Map would never tell anybody you're wrong. The worst case scenario, just turn around, go another 400 meters, turn around, and it will get you into a one-way drive where last mile will catch you, and that's Google Map for you. But that's not economics. You get into trouble, you get into deep trouble. That's economics for you. And when I did see 2 things, at least the World Bank and the country director was raising, alongside with the lead economists there, he said, 1, we have to unify the exchange rate in which we have. We can't afford the parallel market thing going on. 2, it talked about the fact that we really have to stay committed to some of the things going on about. Yeah, those were 2 things we say were going to be strongly mentioned as being very critical at this time. And it leaves you with so much to wonder about. Yeah, it leaves you with so much to wonder about.
Oh my goodness, I think we lost Femi briefly there. Well, we're going to get him back. But for those of you who are watching us live on Facebook, on Twitter, is Nigeria working for you, and how has it been working for you? Because I want to know that. Okay, Femi's back with us. I think he's trying to fix his internet.
Yes.
But we want to know, how has Nigeria been working for you? If you are Nigerian, you might not be Nigerian, but you live and work in Nigeria. How has Nigeria been working for you with all of the things that have been happening? Is it working for you? If you know people who have left the country, or people who are planning to leave the country, what are their reasons? And if you were given an opportunity, on a platter to jet out of the country, would you do it? Well, I want to say hello to Peter, to Pablo, Brett Walker, and this is Ashkan Safari, also from London. Thank you, Ashkan, for joining us. So Femi, we're going to try to get Femi back on this conversation. We're talking about the Nigerian situation. Is Nigeria working for you? All right, Femi, we have you back. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, yes. So you have the World Bank saying about that historic critical junction, and 2 things they believe that we need to turn around urgently, which is, hey, get your parallel thing going on. Well, whatever you're exchanging your currency for, get it right and get it into one position. Don't do the multiple fold and think the world will find it and say it's cool. Second thing they mentioned, of course, is the fact that we can't afford to have subsidy go on the way we think it is going on, and thinking everything is cool and everything is basically going on the way it has. Now, with the World Bank coming into the picture, and those are 2 conditions they passively said, if any country is going to get a loan from the World Bank, and they have to meet up with in terms of this. And by the way, Nigeria is reaching for a $1.5 billion loan from the World Bank, and that doesn't look like it's on course right now, because we're in a situation where the CBN is saying, oh, guess what? We're going to be back on track with over 2% by the first quarter of 2021. The World Bank is saying, if you don't get this right, you're going to go even deeper into trouble. And of course, when we get external reports, we're all like, oh, no, it's not true. Transparency International is saying Well, you guys are not getting it right. The vice president, on the other hand, is having his own conversation in another direction, saying, we're doing our best. But why in a situation where even something as simple as commercial contract, commercial law is being given to, okay, in-laws to read the contracts. No, it's like somebody government is giving the contract to the in-laws. Do you think everything here is fine? Let's go ahead. Let's not go ahead. And that's a lot of trouble for us. Because
so there's a lack of expertise, because I know that Mr. Vice President is the head of the Economic Council, and this is detailed for every other vice president that has been in this country. So, but then the Economic Council is constituted with people who are supposed to know their onion when it comes to numbers and strategy as to how to move our economy forward. But again, I don't want to go into the personalities who sit on the Economic Council now, because I mean, that would be detailed for everybody who's in Mr. President's cabinet, which, you know, square pegs in round holes. But let's move on to something deeper. Within the week, very famous Nigerian activist, human rights activist, Aisha Yesufu was on one of the major news channels, Arise TV, after young people, not this time around, not just young Nigerians, but angry and tired Nigerians decided to, you know, hit the streets once again, even after the president and the Inspector General of Police had said no more protests. We're not letting anybody protest in Nigeria. People were so frustrated and they decided to still hit the streets. Now, the president did issue a statement calling, saying that hoodlums and people who hide behind protests would be dealt with. And Aisha Yesufu had something to say to Mr. President. When we come back, we'll address that, and then we'll talk about the issue of insecurity in the country. Let's take a look at a listen to Aisha Yesufu, and we'll be back.
It's very disrespectful for people that we put in office to keep looking at us and telling us all sorts of things, and then citizens are the ones that are supposed to be respectful to the people in office. If there's anywhere where there's hooliganism going on, I think it's at the Aso Villa, and the president is the one presiding over that. And we've had to feel the effect of that hooliganism. And it's very unfair for the president to come out and look at protesters, people who are coming out and simply say that they are tired of what is going on in the nation, and they believe the government should be able to do something, and coming out to say something of that. That is not the language that the president should be using. He has consistently over the years since he has been elected denigrated Nigerians both in and outside of the country, and every time he speaks, it's that tone that he uses, and it needs to stop. The highest office in the land of this nation is the office of the citizen. The office of the president is the highest political office in the land, and we should always remember that we are not slaves to them. We put them in there to serve us, and that's why they are called public servants.
But it will also be fair to respect the office of the president. I mean, to say of.
Well, that's Aisha Yesufu's response to the president calling protesters hooligans and hoodlums. And this is something that they had said before now, you know, after the EndSARS campaign. What's Mr. President's body language generally? You know, this is the thing that we say in Nigeria, his body language, when it comes to the level of insecurity in the country, being that they have somewhat trampled on our fundamental human rights as to protesting, because we're in a democracy. And one of your rights to ask for good governance or you know, demand for the dividends of democracy is to protest. So the threats and the rhetorics and all of these things that the president and his the people who work with him, oh my goodness, okay, you're back. So the threats, the rhetorics, the language, the body language that the president and his people have been using, does this in any way show that there is hope for us in terms of the level of insecurity that we face and all of the different categories of bad governance that we've experienced, not just under this government, but in the country, these are for presidents that are past and even this administration?
Okay, so it's a situation. Let me go back to what you said about the clip we played about Aisha Yesufu. Coincidentally, I watched the president give that speech live, and I listened to his choice of words around there. When it comes to the to EndSARS portion of that clip, he mentioned clearly that Nigerians have a right to protest. That was his preamble into that paragraph. They have the right to protest. And then quickly he also mentioned that the NSAS protesters did come out to protest. However, some hooligans, and that's the first time we would hear the president make an attempt to differentiate between protesters and hooligans. So for a moment there, I would say I caught him clearly saying, oh, the protesters will not be hooligans. I mean, that's my own interpretation. And then he said the Nigerian army dealt decisively with the hooligans who tried to take over much of everything. And he said, we would not tolerate such disruptions again. Now, that's what he said. And then he went on yada yada to give pretty much good kudos to the Nigerian army about the Northwest, Katsina, this recovered, the leadership of Buratai, how excellent it is, which presumably he also mentioned something that was very critical in that speech, okay? And with regards to security. 3 times within that speech, he said, I've been briefed. And then he went on in another way to say something about, I was told. The speech showed he strongly relied on an intel with regards to security situation in the country. And I'm trying to be very factual and go down to the baseline here with regards to that very speech. So he went on to say, I've been told, I've been briefed, and he used it interchangeably. At least I counted about 3 times. Now, what I also suspect is that whatever intel, that's intelligence getting to the president, may either be falsified or may not be completely truthful or not accurate. Now, still taking it a little bit back now, the Chief of Army Staff, and no, not the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Eneche, who is the spokesman for the Army, also before then, a day before, had briefed the Nigerian press and said something about the farmers. No, it wasn't the day before, but he had mentioned the fact that the intelligence that is being provided by the people, the Army said, the intelligence being provided by the people is not accurate enough, is not truthful enough. Therefore, communities that are terrorists. So we see a situation where it's a multiple fold of deception, lack of truth, and falsified intelligence that has been circulated among the men in power, either by their subordinates, or possibly they're being told the truth and yet they're choosing to evaluate it differently, which is a whole new level in its own right.
Which is also something that Nigerians are wondering, that is the president not necessarily living in the same space with us, because we see and feel things differently, and then the president comes out with a totally different thing that makes us wonder if maybe he's really not in the country or nobody's really briefing him.
Yeah, and it's really, really tough. To show you how interesting, and this is why I was wondering about the president briefing the National Assembly, and I was a little bit curious, because that would be the most extensive speech you would have had to make on security with real life people watching him without a paper. That would have been interesting to see, because see, when we had the October 20 incident, it did not take time before the vice president was able to say, oh, we're so sorry about this incident and that and that. When people said, oh, the president should speak about, when he eventually spoke, he sounded so disconnected about, about, oh, did the people lose their lives? And then slowly he started to change his position towards, oh, so it was this bad. Oh, we would investigate towards it is this bad. And then eventually, we also saw when the clip from CNN and BBC did come forward, it went on to say, oh, they didn't talk about the police. I find this not so nice that they didn't talk about the police. There were lives lost. It wasn't just the protesters that lost their lives and the likes of that. It tells you about, the strong, the level of narratives that it's being shared. And I wish, my strong wish would have been that the president gets the chance to clearly, add 1 and 2 together on a lot of matters. Now, I also suspect, here's my suspicion as well, and I do not say this with fact, but I also suspect, remember there was a time when the National Security Advisor complained about how the generals were not in coordination with him with regards to information sharing, and when he says, let's go do this, let's go do that. Remember that at that point in time. There was that moment.
Are you insinuating that there might not be a synergy within the Security Council, and that's why we're getting mixed messages?
The governor of Ekiti State, who had his own briefing, he hinted carefully about the fact that, well, maybe this chief security officers actually want to retire, but some other people feel, oh, they should stay in there. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to the security sector, I know that it takes, I mean, if you ever get to a rank, to a point, you have secrets worth 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You could retire and still hold secrets that could do and undo a situation. So when you change battles, they say, oh, let's just promote one major general, one major guy, and make him a general. Everybody like, really? Do you know the number of secrets we would have to hand over from one to the other? You know, at this point,
until we play politics with it. Anyway, let me just rush you. Let's move on to the situation in the north. Now, don't forget that between October, in fact, the whole of October, the south of the country was feeling the heat of insecurity, and the north made it seem. I mean, they were paid people. Apparently, these people were paid propagandists to make it look like, oh, you Southerners, you make so much trouble and make us look like, you know. And they said, oh, we're in support of SAS. SAS is good. And, you know, you saw a lot of people doing that. And we hear that those people were paid to do that. But now it's the turn of the North. Unfortunately, there's so many people dying in the North, even in the backyard of Mr. President, Katsina State. They're piling bodies on a daily. And this is what one of the chieftains from Katsina had to say. Once again, he was live on one of the major news channels, Arise TV, in Lagos. Let's take a listen to what the gentleman had to say. We'll come back and talk.
When we speak, it's not that we are against the government. This government, we brought this government in, and it must do what we ask it to do. If it does not protect us, then it's no good to us. So we must speak up, and I call on every Nigerian to speak up. We must hold our government responsible, and that's what democracy is. Participation of citizens. Not this circus you see in the assembly, president come, president go. No. And the president must talk to us. You remember during the NSAS protest, people were screaming, president must address the nation, president must address the nation. Well, we've been having mountains of mortalities and deaths in the north. We've had little or next to nothing from our president. President we elected. President we put in the villa to protect us. He got in Katsina 1.2 million votes. What do we have to show in Katsina? A third of Katsina is under bandits. The capital city is filled up as an IDP. I go to IDP camps, they are praying for him. They are praying for him.
All right, Femi, we're back. That is a very, very that obviously is a remark from a person who's really hurt, who's sick of the number of people and bodies that they have to pile up daily. He's an elder from the Northern Extract, and he even made reference to what I said earlier on, that even the president's state is facing some sort of insecurity. And I tell you, if I were to, spin this pen, on a map, everywhere it faces, there would be some pocket of violence. Akwa Ibom State right now is facing its fair share of insecurity as we speak. In fact, the government of Akwa Ibom State had to, put together a joint task force to deal with it. My state, which we discussed about last week, one of the most peaceful, if not the most peaceful state in the country, is now a den of kidnapping and killing. So why do you think the president is playing the ostrich? How long can the president ignore the security situation in the country? There's so much bloodshed daily. In 2012, President Buhari, then he wasn't president, in 2013 precisely, when President Goodluck Jonathan was the sitting president, he did go on a campaign that the president stepped down because of insecurity. He clearly stated that you can't be running a country when there's so much insecurity and you haven't done anything about it. Should Mr. President not be following his own footsteps, or rather taking his own, I mean, he said President Jonathan should step down. Shouldn't he be also considering it, being that everywhere you turn in this country, there's some form of insecurity?
Well, my guess is one of the things that we all are not skilled in is taking self-advice. You can make decisions, but never comes off as self-advice. In fact, one of the things that makes it interesting is that people never excel when it comes to taking their own advice. I mean, let me give an example. And sadly, it's clearly, we cannot say it's the turn of the North. We can only say it has continued in the North, because at no time was there even a break. There might have been break in terms of how much information comes out of there. Yes. There might have been narratives as regards, oh, well, it's the enemies of the president that were trying to put a spin and put some sports on his government, and there were all kinds of narratives, but there was really no break in the North. We felt Africa was safe until we started to hear stories about from Gwagwalada, from Lokoja Kogi. There was, in fact, some days ago, a friend of mine was telling me about a situation just in Abaji, Lokoja, where a commercial bus returning was stopped by bandits, and all the passengers were taken in. And as at the time he was gisting me, he said they know they've been kidnapped, their families have been notified, but no demand has been made yet. So that's one version of events. Now, unfortunately, when it's time to do a lot of these briefings, I presume for the president, there are categorical words that excel when it comes to security. Oh, we have it under control. It's a bad situation. We're on top of the situation. We overpowered the bandits. The bandits took to their heels. I mean, these are statements that are very popular with the releases that come from the army. And I guess if they can release that to the public, it might also be a good share of it is maybe what is being told to the president as well. I'm not saying he doesn't have responsibilities with regards to this. Now, another confusing moment, I would say, and I would say I was really sad when I had to discuss about Professor Babagana Zulum. I think he's super brilliant. I think he's an excellent governor. Until last week when I heard him say, things are not as bad as, as it seemed under President Muhammadu Buhari, because we've had situations that are worse. He said it's not to say I'm insensitive with regards to the body counts. Remember, he said something of such nature.
Of course, and a lot of people, he got a lot of backlash from people because people thought that he was playing to the gallery. I mean, I was a bit confused as to, look, you are piling dead bodies in your state, and you're telling me that it's not so bad. I'm wondering what could be worse than killing more than 110 people in one day as they were going about their businesses. So these are issues that we have to keep talking about, because it seems like we're going to always sound like a broken record when it comes to these issues.
But guess what, Marianne, I'll also say this to you. It reminds me of what Governor Autumn said when he had issues of insecurity in his state. He said, it's been politicized. If you go against the ruling party, go against the APC, you become unpopular, you're locked out of the resource that you supposedly need. And, all kinds of such narratives were there. Ondo, for example, also had another situation. We're seeing Ondo, Tufia killed, Palace burnt, hoodlums attacked Ondo Committee. That was another fascinating story. Even though the Southwest also claimed that they have the Amotekun on ground, holding ground and covering the situation for as much as they can. And you have that going on. So you also have a situation where the Sultan of Sokoto had earlier said, oh, well, we're praying that God protects us. And then you hear him switch in the last few weeks to the fact to say that, well, this is out of hand. This is not what we bargained for. This doesn't look like what we can safely say is a sense of protection around us. I mean, if the Sultan of Sokoto, who is very revered in the North, can come to terms with being clear with his choice of words to say, insecurity is terrifying all around me, and a lot of the people that are religious, like myself, are having a sense of reservation. When the Kan authorities, the guys in Kan, when they complained about it, about Andimi, Pastor Andimi, who was the current representative, when they talked about it, it sounded, oh, we're just being religious about this. And now we got onto the bad boys books of people who are not so disposed in terms of their religion. By the USA. We got on that list, I think, earlier this week. Yeah, we made it to that list earlier this week with regards to level of tolerance with religion. It says to you one thing clearly. Whatever is feeding the president information is either not sharing enough, or the president is not deciding quick enough on the information being shared. He says, oh, I've bought a lot of arms and lots of things for you guys to go out, clear out the bandits. And another person who is cleverly also changing this narrative now is Governor El-Rufai. Follow through, watch his words in recent times. You know, he granted an interview last week where he mentioned, you know, we're only called chief security officers in title only. Remember that? He said something about that. In title only. He mentioned that, and he said, well, this is all, this insecurity situation. We've just been called. We can't even tell the Commissioner of Police what we want. If we tell him what we want, he still has to go back to the Inspector General of Police. Now, for a long time, for example, the PDP, they've been saying all kinds of things about the president, criticizing him. Obviously, because of the opposition, they may be terrible messengers as perceived by Nigerians, but their message was valid. You understand? And maybe the president is afraid of standing in front of Parliament. I don't know.
I mean, let's talk about opposition, because in all of our conversations, whether we're doing it on traditional media, whether we're doing it in bear parlors, whether we're having it on our dinner tables, we feel, I don't know if I'm not a fly on the wall in every house, but I hardly hear this, you know, conversation about the opposition in Nigeria. Again, I take you back to 2012, 2013, when President Goodluck Jonathan was the sitting president. The Buhari administration had a campaign, an ongoing strategic campaign to demarket the Goodluck Jonathan administration. And they played a good role in being opposition. They did a good job at being opposition. They used social media, which today they're trying to, you know, shut down because they do not want the same thing to be used against them. They used the media. I mean, they were very vocal. They were everywhere. They were asking the right questions. But now, where is the tables have turned? Where is the PDP? I mean, I just posted Uche Secondus claiming that Mr. President is afraid to face the parliament. He's afraid to face National Assembly because 1 minute he's saying, oh, well, I'm going to show up on Thursday. And then before Thursday, he just says, oh, all of you can jump in the lagoon. I'm not coming. And you have no legal right to summons me to the National Assembly. This, again, makes it look like the president is slapping us or, you know, stomping all over us and making us feel like we amount to nothing. But is the PDP doing the job of the opposition under the Buhari administration? I mean, this is his second tenure. And really, I'm not one to say if he's done well or not, but how well has the opposition done?
I think they are a choir that has the potential to sing, but they have terrible, they have good singers, but all singing in different level of harmony. What does that mean? It simply means, for example, when you have women trying to sing the baritone in a choir, and you have the guys trying to sing the soprano, and I don't know how much of music you know, but forgive me, it's just.
Oh yes, I used to sing in the choir. I totally get it. Yes.
So you can imagine how, I mean, when you have those positions, soprano, treble, alto, all tenor, all mixed up, and anybody and everybody. When some people are in the chorus, some people are in the solo, somebody is doing his own ad-lib. And what you find is terrible noise being formulated as some sort of music. So what does that mean? It means at some point you have the spokesman of the PDP speaking, then you have the PDP chairman speak, then you now suddenly hear of other people as well who are speaking, but speaking differently based on how they think a situation affects them, not exactly as opposition. So the PDP may be playing out to be, they may be claiming to be an opposition, but they have a broken voice. They had Saraki recently tried to unite all the many parts in which they are now in, try to unite them. We've seen them put forward some brilliance when it comes to Edo politics, and some other politics. But as an opposition, their election system, having lost, they have it together. They look like they have it planned out, that when it comes to election, we come together, we do this, we do it right. But as opposition, their voices are broken. They are all singing different things that is not hurting anybody, and really questions their own record as well about if they even can talk about insecurity, if they can talk about being truthful about how bad things are. And these are situations where you exactly know that, well, you're not speaking facts. You're just pretty much speaking out of a place of bias. That's it.
All right. I mean, there's just a lot to talk about. But I mean, the video that I'm playing right now is a video of unrest in Port Harcourt. Let's quickly delve into that before we wrap up this conversation. It's unrest in Port Harcourt, where a tricycle rider was shot dead point blank by a police officer, allegedly, while he was going about his daily business. And we all know that in Nigeria, tricycles are a means of transportation for those who can't go on the bus or those who can't take a taxi. And this led to an uprising of sorts. And as you can see in that video, people are burning tires. Young people are angry, and it goes back to the issue of the police not addressing brutality, corruption in its system. I mean, just a few months after the EndSARS campaign, where we have been talking about disappearances of people, police harassments, and just 2 months, barely 2 months later, we're here again. Quickly, let's address this issue. Are we ever going to get past this, or is this going to be a recurring thing, being that the police, Nigerian police, is the same, one and the same, whether it's SAS or whether it's OC, MES, whatever it is, or they call them IG squad, whatever it is? Will there be a change? Will there be a turnaround of sorts? Will any government be able to address the issue in the police force? And how long can Nigerians take this?
My biggest suspicion is the fact that at the national level, there are paperwork, there are judicial panels, there are a lot of investigation with regards to police brutality that is ongoing. For some officers in some of those police stations, in localities, in communities, EndSARS was just bad boys, noisy people who just thought they could shout. And after they had the normal, regular riots, they have calmed down. We have all moved on with our lives. Yeah, that's the perception. I think that's the verdict that is getting out there. If not, I mean, we shouldn't be recording fresh incidents with the police. I'm not saying that we are all saints or all Nigerians. Some Nigerians are not open to be culpable of a crime. But one thing we also must not miss out on is the fact that we're in a situation where we expect suddenly a police officer attached to a community who has made a living, supposedly, from just getting money off the riders every day of his life for the last 6-7 years, is now being resisted because a keke rider feels the EndSARS is right to say, no, I am not giving you. I can only.
But isn't he within his rights? Why would a police officer be asking me for 100 naira as early as 7 a.m. in the morning? And why should I mean, even if it's 5 p.m. in the evening, why should you be asking me to give you 100 naira? You didn't give me any money to keep for you.
Exactly the point I'm making, for example. So the keke rider is within the, we have EndSARS, we have police brutality. You cannot just do and undo like you used to do. And some of those local police officers are within like, well, whatever riot or noise you were making, it has ended. We caught you guys. So give me what you've always given me. And some of the riders are like, everything has changed. It's unfortunate that the mindset is the last thing you can change when habits are built. in the system, especially when systems have been built out of habits. I mean, people have habits all the time, but when you build a system out of it, and people are confident that this system runs, and they're confident that if you ever have to drag a keke rider to maybe a police station, they're confident that the DPO will back them up, and some other ranking officer would also do the same. And unfortunately, sometimes these things look like, if I harass this one, I harass that one, after a while, things will calm down and nobody will talk about it. But these events, always in Nigeria now, the way the Nigerian youth is, if you touch one of us, we're ready to go all out. And that's the realization a lot of government officials and paramilitary and all the others are not realizing, that one case is a big case. One case is a big case. I don't know what other dialects that would work in interpreting that to any officer. But one case is a big case. And I think the IG still has a lot of work to do. It's not just about recruiting some. What about those who are checking? How many times have we had the situation where the police ranking officers or the AIGs say something about, no, the police is not supposed to check paper. And then you hear they check paper on the highway, they don't check inside the state. I mean, very confusing directional policy with regards to
that. It's crazy. I'm going to quickly just ask my last question before I let you go, Femi. We are overrunning.
Wow.
Yes. Let's talk about the president and, the fact that he's not responding to anything, the fact that he's keeping quiet on us, the fact that he doesn't care. I mean, he does what he wants to do. I mean, you just hear that he's commissioning something totally random, and we're here crying out. Like I said at the beginning of this show, a lot of people are looking for a way out of this country. There's a lot of brain drain. I mean, everybody's complaining that the health sector is taking a deep dive, a nosedive. Education is at a standstill as we speak. The economy is also facing a recession of sorts. I mean, everything is just going down the drain. How long do you think that we can take this from Mr. President, his advisors, and all of the people that are around him? We've asked the service chiefs be changed, sack these ones and give us new people. We've not heard anything. The president is giving out 20,000 and 30,000 naira, which, by the way, is not up to $100.
Even do that conversion.
Again, will there be a breaking point of sorts for us as a country, or has that breaking point come and it did not necessarily worry Mr. President? It didn't make him feel anything. How long can we keep taking this before we hit our breaking point? That's if we haven't reached one.
Well, we're having already, there's something in political theories that they often teach. They say when you have governance, for example, whether in monarchy, there are always indications when the season and the time and there's a measure change starting to occur. Failure to read this correctly, you're in trouble. I think the EndSARS was just a phase. COVID-19 was a phase. It doesn't mean it is phased out. No, I said it's a phase. It doesn't mean it's phased out, because remember, EndSARS police brutality question is still hanging in the balance. The issue of COVID-19 is still around the corner. We're having increasing numbers. It means whatever is compressing the economy is still pretty much pressing the economy from COVID-19. We're having the issue of police brutality. We're having the issue of insecurity. Day by day, all the factors that are chipping in the strength of our democracy seems to be getting stronger by the day. And if the house was made of thatch roof, the rain is coming in, the pressure is coming in every day in different ways. And when you hear people like Wole Soyinka say, oh, nobody's in charge, Nigeria is on autopilot, the question then being, who imputed the navigation that we have going on? What are we using to navigate? Who imputed what? What programmed what into our navigation system? And I think we're still winging it. I'd like to go back to what I started with. We're winging a lot of things. One of the worst form of strategies is winging. It's not even a strategy. It's winging. We're winging oh, don't worry, just 43 farmers. I promise you, I commiserate. We are sorry. Those words don't mean much anymore. The economic situation makes it even harder to understand the English language of governance anymore. And I still think we're bleeding. We're just bleeding faster. We're bleeding faster.
Well, I don't know about winging it when it comes to leading a country. I don't know any country that wants a leader who wings it or is trying to understand what's happening or doesn't care about what's happening around them, because, you know, the world is at a very fragile state, and we all know the world is facing a pandemic that is, I mean, is unknown to any medical person. It's the first of its kind, and that's why we're still struggling. Thank goodness AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and all of those guys are able to find us, you know, a vaccine. But in terms of leadership, Nigeria seems to be trying and failing at it, especially with this whole democratic dispensation thing. And of course, Nigerians seem to be really tired right now. And that's why I started off by asking if Nigeria is working for you. I know Nigerians and non-Nigerians who are, especially non-Nigerians who have business in Nigeria, they're all saying we're pulling out. There are too many, you know, problems. The tax guys are coming twice. I mean, there's just too many things that people have to deal with, and it's embarrassing when people come and say, now. I mean, it's crazy, but you and I have to deal with this. I mean, for you, it's worse because you have to banter with people on a daily, and they ask you some questions that you really don't have answers to. I mean, I was listening to Nigerian Info today, and a caller asked someone in the morning crossfire, this President Buhari, is he there in that studio? Can he answer us? Why do we have to talk about it? I mean, so, and it's their frustration because it seems like everything they're saying seems to fall on deaf ears. And so for me, I would say, Mr. President, it's time to wake up. It's time to answer your people. It's time to let them see your actions. Or, I mean, if not, what's coming, you and I might not be able to deal with it. We don't even know what's coming, really, because we don't know where we're going from here.
One thing I can tell people is that it's not falling on deaf ears. At least I'm still getting warning letters. So I do.
Warning letters to be careful what you say about the president. And you see, this is the problem.
Not just about the president. Not just about the president, also about some of the characters, you know, that is surrounded with. I get calls, I get messages on my own show, on my colleague's show, and say, can you go and salvage the situation? Can they? Let's not even talk about the media repression. We
can talk about Nigeria for a whole week. I mean, non-stop. We'll just keep going. But I want to say thank you. Femi Diamele is a broadcast journalist with Nigeria's #1 talk radio station in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Nigeria Info FM. Thank you so much, Femi. This has been a very interesting conversation. As much as we were not able to get the answers that we're looking for, we have to keep having these conversations. And I trust that you keep having those conversations every day, because I listen to you once in a while. And I think that you guys are doing a great job, and we will keep these conversations going until we get the kind of response that we need to get from our leadership. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Femi, for coming. Thank you for all your messages, Brett Walker, Todd Nance. Thank you very much, Peter, Pablo, everyone who's watching us from London, Twitter, Facebook. We appreciate you. This video is still going to be on Twitter and Facebook, so you can watch it, retweet it if you're Nigerian, and let people have an understanding of what's happening in Nigeria. Thank you all for watching. My name is Mariana Kun, and this is where I say my goodbyes. Thank you. Have a good evening.